Right, is it time to have that conversation? The Rasmus Hojlund one, because right now it is not working. He is so low on confidence and he can't find a goal to save his life. The question is, why? So we are, of course, eventually in this video going to get to talking about Hojlund in the penalty area, but before that there are other things that we need to discuss. Because Hojlund's issues aren't just up here, trying to put the ball in the back of the net. They're sort of everywhere all over the pitch, whether that be dropping deep, trying to link the play with teammates, whether that be being used as a target man, or even moving into the channels. Wherever Hojlund is going at the moment, he's having some problems. But perhaps that in itself is the problem in the first place. He's trying to do so many different jobs. In moments he's in the channels, in moments he's a target man, in moments he's a linking striker. You can see in his heat map this season, he's actually playing really, really deep for a centre forward at a big club. If we compare this to Erling Haaland this season, you can see Haaland much more in the penalty area over here. Whereas if we go back to Hojlund's, he's playing much, much deeper. Now, of course, Hojlund is not Haaland, they're not the same player, and also United and City are very different clubs in very different places in terms of tactically on the football pitch. But I think straight away that's an interesting idea. The fact that Haaland is used so exclusively up here in the penalty area, whereas Hojlund is doing much more of a job in deeper positions to try and help his team progress through the pitch. You can see in his pass map, he's doing a lot of work dropping deeper, almost being used as a target man to then try and play short passes in these areas to bring others into the game. And just to tell the truth and be quite blunt about it, that's not his game. Hojlund is not a target man. Yes, we saw at the weekend against Wolves that he did it relatively well. He did bring others into the game, but we all know that is not his strength. So why is Hojlund having to do this? Well, perhaps it's because of the squad that United have. If you look at the players that we've got around Hojlund, we lack elite level ball progressors. So Hojlund has to drop a little bit deeper to try and help them out, and quite frankly, it doesn't suit him. Hojlund doesn't want to be in these deeper positions. He wants to be spinning himself into the channels in this zone here and also in this zone over here. But once again, if we go back to that heat map, there's not an awful lot of work here and there's really barely any over in this position. So that's sort of problem number one. Hojlund is having to do so much to be a sort of complete centre forward, but that's just not his game. Now, I think a sensible thing to do here would be to look at Rasmus Hojlund when he was at Atalanta, because ultimately that is the player that United watched and thought, oh, we really like that profile, let's bring him into the club. So what was he doing with Atalanta? Well, he was getting into the channels in situations like this. You can see him attacking space, moving into these positions and then shooting at goal. We have seen glimpses of this in his first season at Old Trafford. He did produce this in moments, particularly in the Champions League. So why isn't it happening right now? Well, because he's just not asked to do that job. But even when he is, he's asked to do it in a very different way. Previously, we saw a striker that would move into the channels in these positions and be in an area where he can actually get a goal and have a shot himself. Whereas now, he is being used as a sort of target channel runner. So even when he does move into the channels, let's put the ball over in this deeper position. Let's say the inside forward drags a centre-back and we go in behind to Hojlund. He is being used in these wider positions to hold the ball up. And the problem is, when he gets into this position and holds the ball up in this area, he doesn't really have anyone else that's attacking this space over here. You see, Manchester United simply at the moment are not committing enough bodies forward early enough. The wing-backs have quite a big distance to try and cover to get over there, and the inside forwards currently just aren't playing in that way. Perhaps you need a sort of different profile there, perhaps a shadow striker or just a natural box crashing player would do that a little bit more. But we saw against Wolves, when Hojlund is in this position here, there isn't actually anyone in the middle supporting him. If we compare that to his days at Atalanta, Hojlund in the wide channel, there's 2 or 3 players in the middle for him to aim for. So again, this is a problem for Hojlund. Because United have these ball progression issues, Hojlund sort of suffers the most. Of course he does, he's the striker. So United need to try and get players just a little bit closer to him. The other problem though also is a personal one here for Hojlund. He's also just lacking confidence, because yesterday we did see the moment where he could get into the final third, he could play the ball across, and he's just overthinking it. We often talk about players being in flow state, and what we mean by that is things come natural to them. They pick the ball up, it's quite easy, they control it well, they almost don't have to think about it, it all comes instinctively. Whereas suddenly when you're in a bad run of form, like Hojlund has been for, 9 months now, suddenly you start to overthink it. You really concentrate on every touch. You concentrate on making the right decision. You're not acting in a flow state. You're not acting instinctively. Hojlund at the moment he's in his head so much. He is overthinking every single action. And it means in these moments, he just completely wastes it. And that's not what we need. So those are a couple of the issues for Hojlund currently. I think in deeper phases in open play, he is almost being used a little bit too much. He's not a player that wants to be a target man, and he's not a player that wants to be involved in build-up and sort of link and bring people into the game. That's not what he does. He wants to get into the channels, and right now we are not using him as a channel striker that can attack the penalty area and shoot at goal. So that's sort of problem number one. But I think most people would argue, you know, we can kind of live with that. It's kind of okay as long as he's scoring us goals in the penalty area, as long as he comes to life in this zone here. The problem is currently Rasmus Hojlund does not do that. If we look at his stats in the Premier League this season, he is 88th in the Premier League for expected goals, and he is 126th for shots in the Premier League this season. That's one more than Diogo Dalot, it's 3 more than Casemiro, and it's the same as Jefferson Lerma of Crystal Palace. Now, no offence to Jefferson Lerma, he's a good, solid Premier League player, but he should not be having the same amount of shots as Manchester United's main number 9. So why is Hojlund having an issue getting into shooting positions? Well, some of it, first of all, is a tactical thing. Last season we saw a United side that would often look to get into these positions here and flash a relatively quick ball across the box. You can see last season, Hojlund had 4 goals from within the 6-yard box for Manchester United. If we now look at his shot map from this season, not only has he not scored a single goal from within the 6-yard box, but he's actually only had 2 shots. And that is because United are attacking in a slightly different fashion. You see, when we get into the final third, and Rasmus Hojlund makes the run across the near post, rather than trying to find him to shoot at goal, like we can see here in a situation last season, this year the attacking patterns are slightly different. Because when we get here, we use this run of Hojlund across here to drag centre-backs with him, to drag centre-backs into this deeper position. This means that Hojlund himself may not be an easy option, but he is going to open up this space here for someone else to attack. And this is what we can see. Someone can now come into this space, and Manchester United are trying to utilise the cutbacks towards the edge of the penalty area. And I want to do a specific video on this at some point, so make sure you subscribe and get notifications on so you don't miss that. But we've seen it twice. You can see it here. I believe it was against Liverpool to cut back to the edge of the penalty area. But look at Rasmus Hojlund doing the work to take the defender away. And also in this situation here against Lyon, we can see the goal on the edge of the box, but it only happens because Hojlund takes the centre-backs away. So that is sort of problem number 1 at the moment. We're not really aiming for Hojlund in the box, so he's going to struggle to shoot. We also have the issue that not only are we not really finding Hojlund to shoot at goal, but also just collectively as a football club, we're not having that many shots this season. There's a reason we're so low in the table, because it's been really difficult for us this year. And I think if you look at the profiles that we've got along the front line there in the attack, we lack pure elite creators. Of course we have Bruno Fernandes, but sometimes he is playing in a slightly deeper position here. But again, we've got 2 fullbacks on the outside. We haven't got true creative 10s, you know, with someone like Garnacho. He's not a natural creator, so that is one of the reasons why Hojlund isn't getting service. But don't worry, I'm going to stop passing the blame onto other people now and take a look at Hojlund himself, because in moments his movement is simply not good enough, and he isn't switched on. As a striker, what you've got to do, even if you're getting no service in these areas all game, you've just got to keep making the runs, because eventually you might get one. So yes, perhaps this player here is going to be selfish on a few occasions. He might shoot at goal, or he might play the wrong pass, whatever. But as a striker, you've got to keep making the run, particularly when the ball is going wide. You've got to be relentless in trying to attack the penalty area, because football, ultimately, is a low-scoring sport. I think that's why we love it so much, right? Because it makes games really close. There's a lot of jeopardy. It's a low-scoring sport, so that means you need your striker just to be there when it counts. He might make 90 runs in a game and only get the ball once, but when he gets that ball once, he's got to make it count. Hojlund at the moment isn't doing that, because he's sort of switching off in the penalty area. He's sort of wandering about at times, the ball comes across the box and he's just not there. This one at the weekend was the perfect example. As the ball gets played progressively into the penalty area to Christian Eriksen, Hojlund is actually still making his movement away from the penalty area. That's insane. So as the ball comes into this position here, like this into Eriksen, Hojlund was still sort of like jogging back into an onside position. He just wasn't switched on. It wasn't actually until the ball was already played around the corner that eventually Hojlund sort of switched on and realised, but by that time the ball comes flashing across the box and Hojlund doesn't quite get there. And you sort of go, oh, that's unlucky, he was moments away from getting there, but actually it's his own fault because he wasn't switched on in the first place. So there, he is the problem. So I guess really the big question is, how can we help Hojlund? How can Amorim help him? How can his fellow teammates help Hojlund out? I think the first thing would be to try and get players a little bit closer to him. We saw those early moments where Hojlund was running into the channel and he just didn't really have players close enough to help him. He needs more attackers in the front line. players that want to attack the box. At Atalanta, when Hojlund would attack the box, he also had someone like Ruben going in there with him. Last season, we saw Hojlund and Scott McTominay both attacking the box. Currently, United only really have one aggressive player in the final third, and that is Rasmus Hojlund. So we need someone with him, and that may have to come from recruitment. We'll have to see. I think on top of that though, he has to do a better job. So when the ball is coming into these positions, he does need to use his body a little bit better. We've made this point for a long time now. As the ball goes into his feet, he has to use his body more. He's got a really big frame in these positions. He should make it impossible for the defender to go through him and get to that ball. It should be so difficult because of Hojlund's frame. But currently, he doesn't use his body well enough, and that's where he needs coaching. You know, your manager, your coach and staff, help him. Let's take focus away from tactics for a moment. Let's stop talking about that. The job of a coach, ultimately, is to improve the footballers that he's got, right, to make them better. And we're not seeing that with Hojlund at the moment. He needs help here. Technically, right now, he isn't good enough to be that sort of hold-up striker. But if Amorim wants him to be used in that way, then help the guy out and sort of teach him how to do it. Some people will go, we shouldn't have to do that. He's a United striker. But he's 22 years old. He's 22 years old. He's still a raw young striker. He's inexperienced, really, at the top level for a player of his age. So of course he's going to have areas where he needs help. The coaches need to start doing that for him. The other way that we can help him out is that actually when we do get into good attacking positions, we need to try and get the ball into the penalty area on a more regular basis. You can see United simply do not pass into the penalty box that often compared to the best teams in the Premier League. So we need to encourage our players in these wide positions here to be direct, to attack this fullback, to beat the man and then get the ball in the box. And of course, from there, once again, Hojlund has to improve his movement. He has to be more switched on. But I also think we need to try and remove a little bit his left side bias. If we look at his shot map from United this season, we can clearly see that he prefers to shoot from the left-hand side. Now, having a preferred side is all well and good when you play for a great team that creates loads of chances. You can eventually, 9 times out of 10, try and work it onto the stronger side. But when you've only got, 3 opportunities a game where the ball's coming in, beggars can't be choosers. Hojlund doesn't have the luxury of working the ball onto his ideal side. He needs to get better coming into this right space as well. And again, that's something that coaches could help with. So rather than always trying to get into this position here to shoot, can he improve his ability to get into that zone on the right side? Because simply at the moment, he's not taking anywhere near enough shots from there. United needs to try and help him, but he also individually needs to get better. And I think we can see the dynamic we're talking about there, and that's why I don't think this is straightforward. A lot of people want to be told Hojlund is the problem, or the tactics are the problem. But it's not the case. As always, it is both of them. Hojlund has real technical sides of the game that need a lot of work. He needs to improve his movement off the ball, his kind of sensing the danger, in the final third, but also just his concentration, staying alert in the penalty area. He individually needs to work on all of that. But also tactically, we know that United are not a complete side. I think any player would really struggle to thrive up front for United at times, but that doesn't take away from the fact that in these moments here, Hojlund should be there and should do better. So those are my views, my opinions on Rasmus Hojlund. Again, we need to remember he is still just 22 years old. We can be talking about him in 4 years' time. That's when he should really be getting towards his peak, when he's 26, 27, maybe even 28 years old. That's when a striker comes towards their peak. In terms of the solutions, it's a lot of coaching, it's a lot of hard work from him individually, but also perhaps some recruitment to get better players around him, and maybe even to replace him, to sort of an experienced striker comes into the team, becomes the main man. Hojlund, does he go out on loan? I don't know if that's feasible for United or not. Or does he become sort of the second choice striker? Again, he's only 22 years old. He perhaps isn't ready to lead the line for Manchester United. Those are some of the potential solutions. I would love to hear what you guys think though in the comments down below. What do we do with Hojlund? Is it a case of give up, cut losses, sell him, move him on to a different club because he's not good enough? Is it a case of loaning him so he can get some experience somewhere else under less pressure? Is it a case of really backing him, keeping him as the 9 for Manchester United, coaching him, improving him and tactically developing? Or is it signing a striker to play ahead of him, again to sort of ease the burden? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. But apart from that, we are finished for today's video, I do believe. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.